Hello, and welcome to episode 5 of Don't Make Me Pull Out My Books. This one is going to be focusing on Holmes and his attitude towards the rich. So, in elementary, episode 4, Rat Race, we see Holmes take on a case from a bunch of rich clients, specifically bankers, Wall Street, whatever they are, whatever they actually are, I don't remember. And he spends most of the episode fleeing disdain at them and making it very clear that he doesn't like them and he thinks that they're a bunch of people who take advantage of society. And, you know, it could have been a one-off, but we see this attitude pop up again, albeit in a different form, in episode 18, Deja Vu All Over Again, where his father sends him on a case to assist again, a bunch of bankers, and it turns out he's not actually helping bankers, he's helping the assistant of a banker. But nevertheless, he shows again that he really has no time or patience for the wealthy. Now, what's great about this is that this is actually a canonical attitude. Holmes really doesn't have a lot of patience for rich people. And there's a couple of stories that we're going to explore where this comes in. I would normally love to take the time to explain how this attitude is especially important given Holmes's position in society in the Victorian era, as he was part of the gentry. However, I have not done enough research to be able to explain the gentry and the social stratification in Victorian England as I would like to. I have a bunch of books on hold from the library, and they're coming my way, so eventually I may write an essay about it. But it's also really great because Holmes was very much in the upper classes in Victorian England, and Holmes from elementary is also from a wealthy family, albeit he himself is not wealthy, as noted in Flight Risk, episode 6, when Watson calls him on his bullshit by pointing out that his father is the one who pays for the brownstone, and he does not. So again, we have these parallels, these canonical connections between Holmes's place in society in Victorian England and Holmes's place in society in modern England / America. But we're not going to explore that today because I have not done all the research that I need to do. But we are going to look at what he says about rich people. And we're actually going to begin, if I can find my notes, we're going to begin with a quote from Black Peter, just to give us some context about Holmes and how he approaches cases and how he approaches clients when it comes to class stratification. Again, this is from Black Peter. Holmes, however, like all great artists, lived for his art's sake, and, save in the case of the Duke of Holderness, I have seldom known him to claim any large reward for his inestimable services. So unworldly was he, or so capricious, that he frequently refused his help to the powerful and wealthy where the problem made no appeal to his sympathies, while he would devote weeks of most intense application to the affairs of some humble client whose case presented those strange and dramatic qualities which appealed to his imagination and challenged his ingenuity. So that's just a quote really briefly to give us the setup. Holmes is more than happy to refuse cases from wealthy clients and take on cases from poor or humble clients if that's what it takes. If their cases are more interesting and rich people are boring, then screw the rich people. We actually see this a couple of times throughout the stories. We're going to start with if Holmes is willing to turn down cases from rich people. And we're going to look at 2 instances where he basically says, piss off, I got no time for you. The first one is in apropos enough, the illustrious client. The case is presented to him from a friend of the client, and the friend, Sir James, basically says, well, I'm not going to tell you who the actual client is, just know that I'm working on the client's behalf. And Holmes says, I am sorry, said Holmes. I am accustomed to have mystery at one end of my cases, but to have it at both ends is too confusing. I fear, Sir James, that I must decline to act. So he says this after already being told that the client is well-known and very respectable and not someone that you're going to really turn down. And he says, yeah, no, I don't care. If I don't know who my client is, I'm not actually going to take on this case. But that's only one instance, which would be easy to pass off as just, you know, a fluke, except that we see it again in the second stain. That's not the story I want. Sorry, my notes are kind of all over the place today. So in the second stain, the premier who's like some person of position in the government. I'm not really sure how England's government system works, sorry. And the Prime Minister come to his house, and like, these are like big people. You don't say no to these people. And they present their case, which is that this letter has been stolen from an employee of the government, and they need to get it back. And he asks them, you know, what is this letter? And they say, Mr. Holmes, the envelope is a long, thin one of pale blue color. There is a seal of red wax stamped with a crouching lion. Is it addressed in large, bold handwriting to... I fear, sir, said Holmes, that interesting and indeed essential as these details are, my inquiries must go more to the root of things. What was the letter? That is a state secret of the utmost importance, and I fear that I cannot tell you, nor do I see that it is necessary. If by the aid of the powers which you are said to possess you can find such an envelope as I describe with its enclosure, you will have deserved well of your country and earned any reward which it lies in our power to bestow. Sherlock Holmes rose with a smile. You are two of the most busy men in the country, said he, and in my own small way I have also a good many calls upon me. I regret exceedingly that I cannot help you in this matter, and any continuation of this interview would be a waste of time. The Premier sprang to his feet with that quick, fierce gleam of his deep-set eyes before which a cabinet has cowered. I am not accustomed, sir, he began, but mastered his anger and resumed his seat. For a minute or more we all sat in silence. Then the old statesman shrugged his shoulders. I must accept your terms, Mr. Holmes. No doubt you are right, and it is unreasonable for us to expect you to act unless we give you our entire confidence. So, that's two cases where Holmes says, if you're going to keep secrets from me, I'm not going to help you. And this is despite the fact that these are very important people. These are government officials. These are, who was the other guy? The other guy was representing the king. So Holmes is more than willing to set aside cases from important, wealthy people if they keep secrets from him. But that's not the only way in which Holmes basically says, screw you rich people. We have other instances. Thorbridge is actually a really great example of Holmes's attitude towards wealthy people who think that because they're wealthy, they can get whatever they want. I read some of these quotes in one of my other videos. I think it was Can Holmes Be Kind that I read some of these, but we're gonna look over some of these quotes again within a different context. Obviously, the context in this case being Holmes's attitude towards rich people. So what we have here is rich guy bursts in, and he begins to set forth his case. And this is what happens. Let me say right here, Mr. Holmes, he began, that money is nothing to me in this case. You can burn it if it's any use in lighting you to the truth. This woman is innocent, and this woman has to be cleared, and it's up to you to do it. Name your figure. My professional charges are upon a fixed scale, said Holmes coldly. I do not vary them, save when I remit them altogether. Well, if dollars make no difference to you, think of the reputation. If you pull this off, every paper in England and America will be booming you. You'll be the talk of 2 continents. Thank you, Mr. Gibson. I do not think that I am in need of booming. It may surprise you to know that I prefer to work anonymously, and that it is the problem itself which attracts me. But we are wasting time. Let us get down to the facts. So this guy is like, here, I'll give you all the money in the world if you clear her. And he's like, well, yeah, no. But then we continue on. Mr. Gibson has already kind of ticked off Holmes. And then we go on. What the devil do you mean by this, Mr. Holmes? Do you dismiss my case? Well, Mr. Gibson, at least I dismiss you. I should have thought my words were plain. Plain enough, but what's at the back of it? Raising the price on me, or afraid to tackle it, or what? I've a right to a plain answer. Well, perhaps you have, said Holmes. I'll give you one. This case is quite sufficiently complicated to start with without the further difficulty of false information. Meaning that I lie. Well, I was trying to express it as delicately as I could, but if you insist upon the word, I will not contradict you. I sprang to my feet, for the expression upon the millionaire's face was fiendish in its intensity, and he had raised his great knotted fist. Holmes smiled languidly and reached his hand out for his pipe. So, not only does Elementary parallel Holmes's disdain for the rich in Rat Race, they actually do a really great job of paralleling the conversation that occurs In the conversation with the board of director people later on, when he's pointing out, well, somebody had to have been the murderer who followed this guy, who's been killing off all these people. And the one guy springs up and he's like, well, I'm the only one who followed that path. Are you saying I'm a murderer? And Holmes is like, well, I wasn't going to say it, but, well, yeah. Well, that's actually directly in the text. He does the same thing right there in Thorbridge. So, and then continuing on in Thorbridge, he says, see here, Mr. Holmes, I came to you on a question of evidence, not on a question of morals. I'm not asking for your criticism. It is only for the young lady's sake that I touch your case at all, said Holmes sternly. I don't know that anything she is accused of is really worse than what you yourself have admitted, that you have tried to ruin a defenseless girl who was under your roof. Some of you rich men have to be taught that all the world cannot be bribed into condoning your offenses. All the world cannot be bribed in condoning your offenses, rich people. So, Holmes, not really down with rich people throwing their money about trying to get their way. But this isn't the only instance. We have Scandal in Bohemia. So in Scandal in Bohemia, the King of Bohemia comes to consult Holmes and asks for his help, and Holmes does it. But at the very, very end, when it's revealed that Irene Adler has outwitted all of them and fled, has married another guy, and is actually she's actually been kind of wronged in this story. This is what happens. What a woman! Oh, what a woman! Cried the King of Bohemia, when we had all three read this epistle. Did I not tell you how quick and resolute she was? Would she have not made an admirable queen? It is a pity that she was not on my level. From what I have seen of the lady, she seems indeed to be on a very different level to your Majesty, said Holmes coldly. I am sorry that I have not been able to bring your Majesty's business to a more successful conclusion. Oh, snap! Holmes might as well have just said, yeah, she's a lot better than you and you're a dick. And then it just keeps going. Holmes is like, yeah, he's done. He's done at this point. I thank your Majesty. Then there is no more to be done in the matter. I have the honor to wish you a very good morning. He bowed, and turning away without observing the hand which the king had stretched out to him, he set off in my company for his chambers. He just refused to shake hands with a king. That is a big deal. He does it anyway. And then we have Noble Bachelor. Noble Bachelor makes me so happy because Holmes is just like, he's snarking up a storm in this story, and he really doesn't like his client. But we do have, before we meet the client, a couple more examples of Holmes and his attitude towards who gets to be his client and how money is not the deciding factor. We have, here we go. Here's a very fashionable epistle, I remarked as he entered. Your morning letters, if I remember right, were from a fishmonger and a tide waiter. Yes, my correspondence has certainly the charm of variety, he answered, smiling, and the humbler are usually the more interesting. This looks like one of those unwelcome social summonses which call upon a man either to be bored or to lie. The humbler ones are usually the more interesting, and that he doesn't really like social summonses. And then we continue on. I assure you, Watson, without affectation, that the status of my client is a matter of less moment to me than the interest of his case. So, and Holmes' own words, I don't really care if they're rich or poor. I care about what they bring to me. And then we actually meet whatever the client's name is. I don't think I actually have it written. Oh, Lord St. Simon. Then we actually meet Lord St. Simon. Lord St. Simon is a charming man. A charming member of the gentry who is, well, he doesn't really make a good impression on Holmes. So here we have it. A most painful matter to me, as you can most readily imagine, Mr. Holmes. I have been cut to the quick. I understand that you have already managed several delicate cases of this sort, sir, though I presume that they were hardly from the same class of society. No, I am descending. I beg your pardon? My last client of the sort was a king. Oh, really? I had no idea. And which king? The King of Scandinavia. What? Had he lost his wife? You can understand, said Holmes suavely, that I extend to the affairs of my other clients the same secrecy which I promised to you in yours. He really has no time for people who presume that they are better than him or better than other people just because they're of a certain class. Now, all that being said, is there a time where Holmes takes their money and works and runs with it anyway? Yes, there is. We have, the very first quote that I read from Black Peter mentioned, save in the case of the Duke of Holderness, Holmes rarely took lots of money. Well, let's talk about the case of the Duke of Holderness and why Holmes may have taken the money and how exactly Elementary works this in their own unique way. So here is the very end of the case. He goes to the Duke of Holderness and this is what goes on. Blah, 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 blah. The fact is, Your Grace, said he, that my colleague Dr. Watson and myself had an assurance from Dr. Huxtable that a reward had been offered in this case. I should like to have this confirmed from your own lips. Certainly, Mr. Holmes. It amounted, if I am correctly informed, to £5,000 to anyone who would tell you where your son is. Exactly. And another 1,000 to the man who will name the person or persons who keep him in custody. Exactly. Under the latter heading is included, no doubt, not only those who may have taken him away, but also those who conspire to keep him in his present position. Some stuff happens. I fancy that I see your Grace's checkbook upon the table, said he. I should be glad if you would make me out a check for £6,000. It would be as well, perhaps, for you to cross it. The Capital and Countries Bank, Oxford Street, branch are my agents. So he just was like, write me a check. Why would he have this guy write him a check? A reward for £6,000, which was a shit ton of money back then. Like, that is a ridiculous amount of money. Like, wow, that's a lot of money. So why does he ask for it? I mean that I have earned the reward. I know where your son is, and I know some, at least, of those who are holding him. The Duke's beard had turned more aggressively red than ever against his ghastly white face. Where is he? He gasped. He is, or was last night, at the Fighting Cock Inn, about 2 miles from your park gate. The Duke fell back in his chair. And whom do you accuse? Sherlock Holmes's answer was an astounding one. He stepped swiftly forward and touched the Duke upon the shoulder. I accuse you, said he, and now, Your Grace, I'll trouble you for that check. So much like in Elementary, where Holmes starts spending the banker's money and throwing it at whomever he can, he's taking money from this guy because this guy was in part responsible for his own son's kidnapping. And then he went out and was like, well, we're going to cover this up and I'm going to offer a reward and it's going to make it all go away. Well, it didn't, because the Duke of Holderness doesn't deserve that sort of mercy. He did not kidnap his kid himself. That is true. But he knew where his kid was, he knew who did it, and he still let him remain in captivity. So Holmes is like, well, I'm going to milk this for all it's worth. Much like in Elementary. Holmes has no time for rich people who think that their money will get them whatever they want, and he's more than happy to take them down a peg. It is consistent throughout the stories, and it's wonderful that this aspect is showing up in Elementary. Holmes is very much part of the wealthy class status. He's part of the gentry. Again, I'm not going to get into all the details because I don't have them. But especially in Victorian England, there was a sense of class solidarity, and Holmes is more than willing to say, screw that, never mind that. There is a crime that has been done, and I'm going to take care of it. Don't treat me like I'm less than you. Don't treat others like they're less than you. You are human. I am human. Nothing else matters. We see that again in Elementary. Elementary has a Holmes that clearly grew up within a wealthy family. His father is, despite their issues, is close enough to, pay for the brownstone for Holmes. He pays for Holmes's rehab. He pays for most of Holmes's style of living. And this is a Holmes who still does not like the rich, even as he takes from them and is part of them in all technicality. And it's wonderful that we get to see that in these stories, because generally It's not explored. The fact that we do have class tensions that were present in the books, also present in a television show, is lovely because we often don't get to explore class issues with Sherlock Holmes in the adaptation. We just see a wealthy Holmes, and that's all that matters. But we get to see the friction between the two. We get to see that Holmes ain't got no time for people who are going to piss him off, regardless of how much money you have. And that's awesome, and I love it. So that's it for this week's episode. As per usual, comments, questions, anything like that can reach me in the comments section below. I'm just going to make a general below, down there. Or you can contact me at my Tumblr, language-escapes.tumblr.com. And you can send me asks there. And I think that's all for today. Hope you enjoyed this one. If you have any suggestions, I'm almost out of topic list before I have to start going through episode by episode. So send me prompts. I will see y'all later. I won't see you. You'll see me. Hopefully I'll hear you. Written word wise. Gonna be done now. Bye.